Hey everybody, David Bloom here at Next TMT here with our partners at Media Play News and my partner Daniel Frankel, talking all things technology, media, and telecom. This week, FCC gets swampy on both broadcast ownership and gala tickets to things maybe they shouldn't be taking gala tickets for, as well as more questions about who gets to buy whom and how fast. Love Island generates an astonishing amount of money on Kalshi. We've got a little bit of box office momentum because Christopher Nolan's got a little film coming out this weekend that people are kind of interested in. And data centers are getting blocked for a whole year in New York, which is a big deal. With that and probably some other things coming up, I'm here with Big Dan. Hey, Dan.
Hello.
So let's talk FCC undrained swamps. This is looking like worse than the algae in the reflecting pool.
Well, I guess we could start with the Paramount Warner Brothers end of that. And
You mean the suit that finally got filed? That's that, for instance?
Yeah, Paramount's pretty confident that it doesn't have the antitrust gravitas that it would need to get a preliminary injunction. I think what I'm reading, this is from Brian Stelter at CNN today, the viewpoint is that a temporary injunction, delaying it 2 or 3 weeks, is very doable and likely, but them actually succeeding with
On the merits, as they like to say.
Right. And I got to say, Jeffrey Kessler, who's the lead attorney for Paramount, was on CNBC, and he lays a pretty compelling case for an embattled linear entertainment industry that's facing down the barrel of streaming and needs to combine. It's for the good of the industry, Dave. It's not a bad rap. I think it's a lot of people are comparing it, including myself, to Nexstar Tegna, the big broadcast merger. Much smaller in size, only $6.2 billion being exchanged here.
Yeah, 1/20th of the size, but yes, you're right.
A major law was overlooked here. It was the station ownership cap. You're not supposed to own 39% of the stations in this country. And I think that deal would make it like
double that. It's like 80%. It's 39% is supposed to be the cap. And it's market reach, and you stack up the percentage of all the markets you have, and is that
right
less than or more than 39%? And this would be decidedly more, double that.
Right. So thinking about in legal terms, what does this merger do? You're afraid of what Bari Weiss will do to CNN. I'm not sure that stacks up in court. Does it ruin competition and make life more expensive and tedious for consumers? Is the question. And
well, you can make a reasonable case, and this is what I'm almost certain did not get in. I did not hear him speak, but I think you can make a case to force divestiture of CNN for a multiplicity of well-funded large news organizations. That particular little corner, you can make a case for in ways that maybe you can't for everything else. Though, I got to tell you, I am still like, Hollywood was so clueless. They were so mad that Netflix might buy Paramount. I mean, buy Warner Brothers.
Right.
That they kind of David Ellison has made movies before. Well, Ted's made a lot more movies, actually. But, they think of these guys as heathens at the gate, and Ellison somehow parachuted in on his, he got into USC's film school. Good place to start, and made some movies, fine. Not the most inspiring movies. Some of them are pretty good and did pretty well, but he had a lot of money.
He produced Top Gun 2.
He was one of the producers on Top Gun. I'm going to bet that Jerry Bruckheimer was more important in that production.
But I think it's
just
sort
going
of
to
positioned
bet
him.
I'm going to go on Kalshi right now and make a bet. It's going to be a little bit out of date, but still.
Right, but that was one of the things that positioned him to buy Paramount, though. He was viewed as a steward, a guy who understood filmmaking and the process and helped save the box office at a critical time. I don't think
that would have done nothing without Tom Cruise, so I think it's more Tom Cruise. And, that's just me. But whatever, Hollywood guys like, um, that Avatar guy, Jim Cameron. It's like, oh, Netflix will be a disaster. It's like, yeah, is this going to be less disastrous, Jimbo? But that being said, Bob Lefsetz, the cranky music industry guy who puts out a multiple times a week newsletter, blog, whatever, is not that fussed about Warner Brothers getting bought. He says, look, a whole bunch of people in the business are going to lose their jobs, and they're really unhappy about that. But welcome to what's going on. We were talking about Verizon's planning to lay off another however many hundreds or thousands of people. Telecom's laying them off left and right. Tech is laying off people that thought they had great jobs as computer engineers. They don't. Well, they may find something else, but they're getting laid off. There's nothing that says you're guaranteed a great middle class gig making movies for till the end of time.
I think this is going to happen. I think
yeah,
it's going to be hard to stop, but I think Paramount's pretty dug in and determined at this point. The issue is what kind of delay will happen, and can Rob Bonta and crew leverage a sale of CNN out of it and protect it?
What's your leverage, and what can you extract from it to make it go away? And we need merely look at Fubo, right? Your buddy Gambler over there. I mean, he's out of a job now, but he was over at Fubo.
I could never get the guy to do anything. We tried to do panel events when we were at Next TV, and I pitched him all sorts of things.
He's a little rough around the edges. If I was his PR people, I go, I don't know, Mr. Gambler, I'm not sure we should do that. But that being said, he saw the venue effort or attempted effort by Fox and Disney, and who was the third one? Was it CNBC? Was it
Fox
Comcast?
did Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers. That's right.
Yeah.
The venue deal, which was basically, and that was an antitrust thing, and he filed suit and put the brakes on it long enough for Disney to say, okay, we'll buy 70% of your company.
Right.
Which is probably for a lot more money than it's worth. But now they're figuring out some interesting things with it. Great. But he extracted something of value. And Warner Brothers did the same thing when they lost out on the NBA deal. They lost pretty clearly because the other guys had better stuff, but they filed and they got things like a couple of opening games in the college football playoffs and other bits. So these things can be timeline. Yeah, so these could be litigation to extract basically a payoff. I mean, this isn't really, nobody's getting rich off of it, but CNN maybe gets extracted and sent off so that Anderson Cooper doesn't have to quit a second high-level job, for instance.
So you don't know precisely that, if a preliminary injunction did get slapped on this thing, you could be looking at, you look at the Nexstar Tegna thing, and they don't have a trial on the docket until July 6th of next year. That's a year from now. And that's a significant delay.
That's American justice.
It's it's in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Theoretically, could be thrown out on appeal, but there's no guarantee of that. This thing is really delayed, and it's not the same case by any means. But if you're Paramount's lawyers, maybe be willing to give up cable news to make it happen. I don't know what that does to your federal relationship. Obviously, it was pivotal.
that's the thing. That's the bank shot that gets interesting here, right? So, let's just say certain people in the current administration would really like their buddy Larry and his boy David to buy up and defrock yet another prominent news organization that is not completely in love with the president. They would love to have that happen and fire a bunch of Caitlin out, gone. All these impertinent women in particular, gone. And just make it a lapdog. They would love that and have, I think, kind of expressed that. And if they don't get that, they might be annoyed. I don't think that will stop them from waving this thing through, but they can do other things.
Yeah, it's going to be, it's going to be interesting. It will be, and it's going to happen in the next month or so. I feel like it's,
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
I don't
instead
know.
of just watching Dog Days baseball or preseason NFL, we'll have something to talk about. How great is that? It's a
Well,
win
there's.
for us.
I don't know if you watched England versus Argentina today. I'm sure you did. Maybe.
Well, I was actually at my spouse's medical appointment, but doing what I could to watch Spectrum on my phone.
Yeah.
So the problem is they've got, well, technically two more games, but one of them really no one cares about, but even the teams in it,
This was an
which is the,
invitation to talk about this, Dave.
yeah, well, you brought it up.
I'm
Do
just
not
kidding.
open the door if you
I'm
don't want
just
people
kidding.
walking through.
Of course. So we
So
have
the point
what is
is that the point is that World Cup is almost done
so we have a
in
final
this
coming up.
weekend.
Is it
Yeah,
Saturday or
this
Sunday?
weekend. There's a third round game on Saturday and the final between two very good teams, including the defending champion, and what looks like the most powerful team in the whole thing, Spain. So that'll be fun. But then it's done. And then what do we do?
Mm.
Well, turns out if you are, in fact, if you are Versant, Versant Media, and you own, you got a whole division called USA Sports. You take your president, put him on CNBC, which you own, to talk about your new deal with the Bundesliga, which is Germany's top pro league, has a bunch of World Cup stars playing on various teams like Bayern Munich and Dortmund, et cetera, et cetera, to say that USA Network and Fandango are going to have 300 live matches and then through 2031. And what's fascinating about that is Fandango, former place to get movie tickets, is now going to be a fast service.
Mm.
You don't have to sign. It's going to be a competitor to Tubi and the Roku channel. And that I find really interesting because it's already a fractured business, right? But this is
Right.
Versant saying we don't have to, rue the loss of Zumo or depend on
Exactly.
Tubi/Roku.
We can make our own fast. I
We
mean,
can
this
make our own
fragmented
fast,
collection of broken brands.
and
We
they've
can
got
heal.
all these different. They've got these libraries, and just look at what Suits, a USA show, did when it got put over on Netflix for a summer and it went nuts. Well, all of a sudden that franchise got a lot more valuable. Well, they can take some of this stuff, show it here, showcase some things in the USA, Sci-Fi, Oxygen Network, shows that maybe got watched, maybe didn't years ago, but still have some value. They can run them on there. They can make some money. They can connect with audiences for very little additional cost, and maybe then resell the rights or license the rights to somebody like Netflix for a run that pops it through the roof. And all of a sudden that makes a lot of sense. Plus, you got Bundesliga, they got English Premier League, so that's soccer. They've got the golf channel and all the golf stuff. So now you're going to be doing like Thursday and Friday on every big golf match for, was it 40 weekends a year or
You're
whatever it is that golf
Versant
is going?
crazy. Look at you. It's a neat
I,
little
I'm
business.
not.
Well,
I am not. But, it's more of a business than I thought it was. I'll just say that. I think that's safe to say. It's like when you start plugging in the live sports rights, and they've got this whole division that Matt Hong heads as president called USA Sports, and it's sports across all of that. It starts to get a little more interesting. It's not like it all went to NBC Universal. They kept some stuff. They got WNBA, which is having some challenges being famous now, and but is bigger than it's ever been, et cetera, et cetera. So there's stuff there
I
that
thought it was
they're involved
interesting.
in.
This is tangentially related. Patrick Crakes, the former Fox executive turned
Yes,
high-profile consultant,
and friend of
responded
the
to
show.
no,
Friend of the
big
show.
friend of the show, big friend of the show. He responded to a tweet from one of the media reporters, the big national media reporters. I don't know if it was the guy from the Times or who was. I forget. It's 3 days ago. Anyway, it was about like, well, soccer is still not big in the U.S. World Cup hum. And if you cum all the leagues, the various Spanish language and English language regular
Yeah,
broadcasts.
you throw in Telemundo, it gets really interesting really
If you add
fast,
all
right?
those up, it's pretty big. It's a lot more fragmented. There's not like one overarching pro league.
It's not like the NFL,
right?
Yeah,
but I was.
It's more like college football, actually, in a lot of ways, where you've got intense interest for a more focused group of people. But that
Right.
intense interest means they'll show up. And so that has value. Like there's a whole bunch of, German expats and folks following different stars who play for Bayern Munich or whatever, kind of watching Bundesliga. I like watching his Premier League because it's the best league in the world. So on a Saturday morning, during 35 weeks of the year, it's kind of fun to pop it on at 7 a.m., 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning. But you've got that.
What else you
It
pop at
is
7 in the
actually
morning? Bloom, huh?
granola with nuts, seeds. I'm so California. Some blueberries,
Living well, living well.
hemp, flax seeds, chia seeds, all that stuff. Cashews, walnuts, almonds, raisins.
Yeah.
But I don't look a
All
day
right.
over
So
93. But the
so
point is that soccer's a thing. And what I thought was interesting from Matt Hong, he said is, we're not going to be able to really do the NFL, make a run at the NFL, but pretty much everybody else, we're looking for deals. And so they're hunting for more live sports. So there are some live sports coming up, particularly on the women's side, that will be very happy to do a deal with them. So that's something to watch, I think.
hunting for live sports, it seems to be a business within a business at this point.
Absolutely.
So
And
I see
it's
a
a
lot
big
of
part of it. Yeah. Yeah.
separately and not
Mm.
relating to live sports, a lot of questions. Is this Odyssey any good? This new Christopher Nolan movie I'm hearing so much about? It got 98% fresh on the Rotten Tomatoes, which is love it or hate
Pretty
it,
good.
kind of a
Pretty fresh.
arbitrator,
By
aggregator.
the way, speaking of Versant Media Holdings, Rotten Tomatoes, they own that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting if they could do something interesting with that layered on top of their fast operation with Fandango. But anyway,
So
yeah,
anyway,
Odyssey.
it's a part of
Odyssey
a
getting
larger
some good ratings.
backdrop. The domestic box office set to make $10 billion for the first time since the pandemic became a thing. People talking about like the resurgent box office with a straight face for the first time. I don't go to the movies nearly as much as I used to, but I'll buy it. The Gen Z likes the movies still. Nothing's premiering on streaming these days. Everything's going through a theater again. Do we get back to 2019?
No.
Can we go back, Dave?
I'll be fascinated to see if those Gen Z kids, particularly if inflation continues and they feel more pinched than ever
Right.
to pay for it. Used to be theaters is where the teenagers went to make out and get the hell away from mom and dad, particularly dad, or particularly their girlfriend's dad. So that time honored tradition, right? Well, that
Yeah.
that hasn't gone away, but in terms of what's there, it's on track finally to get to 10 billion this year. And it's important to remember that 10 billion this year, nice number, nice round number, great, fantastic, best since the pandemic, still a billion less or more
Right.
than the take every year for 5 years before the pandemic, when they sold a lot more tickets for less per ticket. So this is still a business where you're charging more, particularly with IMAX. Boy, Odyssey's going to pre-sold 28,000 IMAX tickets were pre-sold a year ago because it's like Christopher
Wow.
Nolan IMAX Odyssey. We're buying that one. Yeah, we're buying it now for a year from now. Same thing in England. Same crazy, way in advance sellout of all the IMAX high dollar. Those are more like $30 tickets as opposed to $750 or whatever. So it puffs up the box office, particularly on that opening weekend. It makes it look really, really great from a strategy standpoint. So that encourages the second week and third week to be better also. So take everything with a grain of salt. Yes, they may hit 10 billion. Great. It is less great when you look into the numbers and what's underneath the numbers, which is still fewer tickets being sold, higher reliance on premium experiences like IMAX, but also is it the DX, I think, or whatever, Cinema D, whatever it is that Cinemark does, et cetera, et cetera. All of those premium screens, and now we've got a couple of others that are coming down from Disney, and I think Sony's got some more stuff with their things. So even the branding's a little
Well, they've got that new thing where like
fractured.
they take you as soon as you enter the multiplex, the arms reach out, grab you by the waist, and there's a little safety harness to make sure that you don't collapse. They turn you upside down and shake you out to make sure all the change in your wallet falls out.
And then they hand you a tiny amount of popcorn, a giant, weird-looking popcorn bucket, charge you $47 for that, and say, "Thank you, sir. Yes, you can have another, if you can still afford
So,
it." You know, but
so
so
this is
so
I'm
so
going to just
just take
ask
it.
you this.
Take
This is
it.
it's a obviously we live in a reading culture. You know, all of our kids
No, we don't.
from a young age sit around and read impossibly long fantasy poems about Greek life and just can't wait to get to the theater. Why? I mean, of all the things to make a movie about, you're Christopher Nolan, like Tarantino and a few others. Whatever you do next, people are with bated breath want to know
See, I just one of the
why.
few rock star directors out there that will get people to show up no matter who's starring it. Though the cast of this is pretty top notch. He has said, and I think this makes sense, that it was important to take one of the foundational stories of our
Right.
civilization and tell it in a way that was accessible to people in this time. So there are some controversial creative decisions, like everybody kind of talks like an American. Helen of Troy and her suddenly now twin sister Clytemnestra are both played by a incredibly beautiful black woman, Lupita Nyong'o, who may in fact actually
Oh,
be
that
the
was
most beautiful.
controversial for a while.
It still
It's a
is in
DEI
certain
hire.
very, very well. Elon and his ilk say that it's
Yeah.
designed to meet the racial equity rules to be eligible for Oscar. It's also possible that she's the most beautiful woman in the world, still, pretty much. But there's also Travis Scott, the hip hopper, plays a bard who briefly is in there telling some tales, which kind of makes sense because really Travis Scott, and it kind of takes the idea of the wandering musician telling the oral story of the Odyssey by Homer, who may have been hundreds or thousands of storytellers over decades or centuries pulling that story together into now with a hip hop star who kind of does the street stories, right? So I kind of like that. I
It's
really like that connection, right?
challenged the old eighth grade education, I think, a little bit. I used to be eighth grade. It's
Yeah.
probably close to fifth grade
There is a
now.
new there is a new translation of the Odyssey out there floating around. It's highly regarded from a female
Odyssey for
scholar.
dummies.
So no, it's Odyssey for Grown-ups,
Yep.
and it's done by a female academic whose name escapes me, but I'm sure it will enrage Elon that a woman could do that. But that being said, that's out there. Probably, I would recommend, just as I would with Beowulf, Seamus Heaney, the great Nobel Prize-winning poet, did a translation of Beowulf, the thousand-year-old tale of the North, um, and then read it in an audiobook in his melodic Irish voice about 25 years ago. Dig that out. Find the best audiobook version of this story as it was meant to be heard, not read, and maybe then you go see the Odyssey. Just a thought.
Yes. Just in the format that the filmmaker intended. Yeah.
Well, he's telling a tale though, and I think this is important. This is a tale that's undergirded so much of modern, film, theater, art, etc. It is again a foundational set of stories. So telling it in a way that makes it accessible to fanboys willing to pay $30 a ticket a year in advance is great. All right. The Wall Street Journal review today was quite solid. This is not the best Nolan, but it is very, 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 very good. And it does an excellent job at what it does. There are bits here, and they had quibbles. Fine. Quibbles are quibbles.
Right.
When you get past the intensely online people like the owner of X to like normal human beings, I think a lot of people will like it. Does that mean that the box office is all fixed? No. Does it mean that it might make 10 billion? Yes, but there's still 5.5 months to go. There's still one more big season between November 1st and the end of the year that they have to kind of hit it out of the park. And there's lots of opportunity. From now on, after this week, there's not going to be a whole lot of, there's nothing big coming out in August. It's more dog days than Major League Baseball. So your best shot's going to be do it now with this, hit $1 billion plus, get another $1 billion out of something in the fall and in winter, like second week in November going into Thanksgiving. That's how you get to 10. But again, fewer tickets sold for much higher prices. So don't act like it's all great, Hollywood. It's just less bad than it was.
Less bad. That's great marketing. I'm going to have to write that down.
That should hearten everybody as they look at the consolidation of studios. I'm just saying.
Recalling my time at the Balboa Apartments. This is in the Valley. I lived across the street from the Harbin Kardon JBL. I think it was one big audio conglomerate, and they had a factory.
It is, yeah.
And they did their thing. We played roller hockey in their parking lot sometime, I was unemployed for the summer of '93, and we had like this. All I did was play roller hockey and collect unemployment checks. It was a great time.
And sweat. If you were in the Valley in the summertime playing roller hockey, you were sweating a lot.
But a couple years later, I started noticing this low frequency hum. It's hard to describe. It was like X-Files stuff. It was in my head. I couldn't get it out of my head. It would start at night when everything would kind of quiet down. It was a busy road I lived on, and you could hear it all through the apartment. And it was driving me mad. So I went and tracked it down, and it was originating from the factory. And after just wandering, taking my own Odyssey through this big JBL complex, I ran into an engineer who was on his coffee break. And he said, well, yeah, we took the pipe that channeled all this noise that comes from the mill, or mill the speakers. And the residents on the other side were complaining about it. So we took it, turned it over to face you. And I said, well, that's no bueno. And ultimately, a resolution was found. But I hear the same complaints in news stories about data centers, that they emit this low resolution buzz that just doesn't come out of your head.
I think they're worse than that because they also generate a lot of heat. And I don't think that Harman Kardon JBL plant did that in the same way.
No, just great sound, good decibels, high fidelity. But
true fact. I just wanted to say, true fact. I met Stanley Harmon, the guy behind Harman Kardon. He was an entrepreneur in residence at USC's business school when I was associate dean there. And his wife, of course, was a congresswoman for the South Bay for many years, Jane Harmon, very impressive woman in her own right. And Stanley, even at 80, which is what he was when he was entrepreneur in residence, was a freaking Tasmanian devil of energy. He was extraordinary.
What was his nationality? He was.
This is a man. I think he's Jewish. I think that's right.
I thought he was from Western Europe.
But Stanley Harmon.
Is he American?
Well, you could be Jewish from Western Europe.
I don't know. I mean, he grew up like.
I don't know if you'd.
I thought the country had European roots and was not American. But I don't know.
Well, but certainly by the time he got over here, like after the war, and was involved in helping make home audio a thing, and at a high level for consumers who had pretensions for more than just the little portable 45 disc player.
Oh, we could go into that, but I wanted to go into data centers.
But you wanted to go into data centers, which are the new.
Well, here's the question:
noise bombs.
As we talked about earlier, New York became the latest state to say we don't want them here.
No, the first state to ban. There have been cities and municipalities, counties, or whatever. This is the first state to do a 1-year ban on data center development.
My question, how are we supposed to have an AI bubble if we can't manufacture AI in critical geographic
We
locations.
can't keep blowing. Texas don't care. They're building this stuff at rapid levels. There's a piece I just ran across today of a woman in Abilene, which is way out in the west end of Texas. A lot of open land out there, as you've seen in your watching your Landman episodes.
It
A
just
lot of
looks
open
like a
land.
beautiful
Abilene's,
landscape. Yeah. Just
well, one
hot,
man's beauty is
flat,
another man's
full of
despairing
oil
shithole. But
wells. And
anyway,
you can keep it,
yeah,
Caleb.
that's more like Odessa, but Abilene's not quite like that. It's more cattle country, mesquite scrubland. It's not great, but it's not terrible. This woman has a nice little ranch. Wakes up one day and she's got a giant, she's got a giant um, data center. I think it's the Stargate complex that Elon is building, just humming away like 500 yards away. Got her back 40. No notice. That's Texas for you. Et cetera, et cetera. But I think Texas is taking it all, even though they don't really have the water for it in a big chunk of the state. They have it in other parts, but they've had terrible drought. So, let's just put a bunch of things in there to suck up even more water than the fracking does. At least we can make money off the fracking. Atlantic had a really interesting story about one of the challenges of the economics of AI. In computer land, we are used to it growing at like a logarithmic scale, right? So as it gets bigger, boom, it really takes off in this parabola. It's amazing. AI doesn't really do that. You need to be bigger and bigger and bigger because you need more examples to like answer the questions. But it grows in a quadratic way, which is a disaster financially. So I'm going to be fascinated to see when all this stuff hits a wall. The New York thing is perhaps ahead of its time a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be the only one. It's going to be huge. Going to be huge. So, by the way, speaking of things that are going to be huge, Love Island, a show I have not watched, though I have seen.
This
pictures.
Is crazy. This is nuts. Bananas.
Bananas. Don't get those people going on bananas because they don't really need it.
They're betting on Kalshi on outcomes on reality shows. And it's just like
on pre-recorded reality competitions. What could go wrong?
NFL live sports conspiracies. It's all staged. I'm not one of those people who believes that shit. I think that a ball thrown in the air, connecting with the receiver, ball shot in the air for a basket. There's an outcome that's not predetermined. You can base it on percentages of success, etc. But a reality show, it's in the can.
But even there,
for months.
But look, yeah. Well, not months because the audience does vote on it. But you can kind of anticipate some things, skew the way things turn out, fiddle with the votes, and know, these guys are going to be kicked off the island this time. So we'll put in a bet on that. The insider betting on it, there's nothing to stop it. I don't think it's illegal. And I'm guaranteeing you, it is nothing like what the NFL has in place to prevent and capture, or the NBA to capture players who are betting on games. I mean, even the NCAA, as inept as it is tapping into that system to track online illegal insider betting. And that's why Brendan Sorsby no longer has a job either at Texas Tech or in the supplemental draft of the NFL because he was betting on his own games. So, football players, were doing it. Can you imagine what these hyper ambitious, totally crazed, want to be famous, want to be rich, but don't actually want to have skills, reality show competitors are willing to do? So maybe, so Kalshi, just on Kalshi, the prediction market Kalshi, heavily promoted. It's got a Timothy Chalamet ads now, and because he's apparently doing everything. Love Island UK, Love Island US, $77.3 million in handle just on Kalshi. Never mind all the other prediction markets or anywhere else.
Yeah, some of those Chalamet decisions lately are questionable. This is what
I love the Adidas ad. The Adidas ad, awesome.
Yeah,
awesome. Pre-World Cup, that one rocked. But this one, Kalshi, while he's getting dental work done, That seems odd. But he's in a lot of stuff. So I think he's striking while the iron's hot. It's like, dude, you're good enough. You may be famous for a long time. So you want to like burn all that goodwill. You and Sydney Sweeney want to burn all that goodwill now. I get being a female in Hollywood, maybe you feel like the clock's ticking a lot faster, but he's a
Sure.
dude.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting situation. David Beckham in every other World Cup ad. He's also in the World Cup ads with Timothy Chalamet. But he's become America's like world football sweetheart, like Peyton Manning. Timothy Chalamet is getting all the others, all the other ads. I am looking forward to a new set of ads with Peyton. I'm looking forward to Peyton Manning ads. That should say everything.
I watched, speaking of Peyton Manning, because he's a producer and narrator on Quarterback, the Netflix series.
Oh, yeah,
and I watched the latest installment. They had Cam Ward. Didn't realize the arm strength on the kid. Improved quite a lot
Oh,
over
my
the
goodness,
second half of
yes.
the season last year. Be
Yeah.
honest, I was a doubter as a
Kid-
college player, but I'm high on him now based on that series. So,
yeah, I think he's one of those kids that came out of Washington State and took a big NIL payment to go to a major player, and then he became like a top. Was he a number one draft choice? I can't remember. I think he was.
he was a number one
It paid
draft
off
choice,
for
and he
him,
kind
but
of
he
came
kind
out
of
of
went. Yeah.
he didn't go to a high school where he was exquisitely trained. They didn't even run a passing offense. I think he threw like 8 times a game, so he wasn't recruited. He ended up going
But
to
everyone was a
on
touchdown. I
partial
guarantee
scholarship
you.
to some tiny school.
Yeah.
Transfers to Washington State, does well 2 years in a row
Right.
in what was the Pac-10 or Pac-12 at those days, and then ended up in Miami, and then he's a number one draft pick. But through that show, they do a good job of showing his recipe for success. He likes to watch film. He likes to learn about reading defense. And I think that's he's not out there in the hot tub with the Courvoisier. He's studying. And
Right.
I think that's if you have that skill, if you have that desire, a big part of it. You have to have those skills.
I agree with you completely. I think the thing that makes the difference between very talented players who go a long way and last a long time is there's a set of motivations and drive and willingness to be. In basketball they call it a gym rat, right? But I don't know what the film rat. I guess a film rat in football, right? But you're just prepping and learning and stuffing things into your brain and working your body and doing all and being committed to that as opposed to being famous or whatever. So let that be a lesson to the Love Island contestants.
They juxtapose Cam Ward with Joe Flacco, who's at the end of his career rope, who's had a pretty good career as a really smart guy who just sort of made it on he never had an extraordinary athletic talent, but he was smart.
He played at Delaware, I think.
Could you?
But I think he played like a little school like Delaware. Yeah.
I think NFL football and that quarterback position are going into the sort of, you have to be the freak that's both the gym rat and the athletic prodigy to succeed. You can't be one or the other. Just a prediction.
Right.
Put it on Kalshi.
That's an interesting thing to think about, and whether that will apply with. I mean, quarterback's a weird position in that particular sport. It'd be interesting to see if there's something like that in other sports. Very few sports have such a single position having such a crucial role, right? But that is interesting to think about where that goes and what that means for who gets to grab the golden ring. I mean, maybe you got to grow up going to quarterback school in 5th grade and you get into modern day here in Southern California as a 7th grader and you're already doing, 7-man passing leagues all summer by the time you hit puberty. And you have to win a couple of state titles and then ideally go to USC.
What was Daniels? What was his name again? Yeah. He won Gatorade Player of the Year. He went to Modern Day. I think he played.
Yeah.
And he went to USC and then ended up transferring a bunch of places. Kind of made a dent.
Because Caleb, he left when Caleb Wilson came with Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma.
No, he left.
I think he went to Georgia.
He left after he got hurt. He was.
Did he leave before that?
Yeah, but he never really it wasn't just the injury; he never fulfilled the promise that he
Right,
had.
right.
And part
Well,
of
it'll be
it was,
interesting how many of those guys bet on Kalshi. That's all I'm saying.
since we
So,
are in the 40-minute mark, and people I do think tune into this thing to find out what I'm watching on Netflix. I did also see the 2019 Sam Mendes war epic, 1917, the other day, and I do think that's really topical. There's a lot of ties to a current news budget that we can really work that into. I just thought I'd say I
I'm
really
sure you'll
enjoyed it.
find a way to do it, but I'm surprised that given this weekend's debut, you didn't watch Dunkirk
I'd seen it so many times.
by,
I love that movie.
Christopher Nolan. Oh, okay. All right.
I
All
might
right.
have to watch
Wow.
it 12 times.
It,
That is such a good war movie. I've been on a war movie bender,
oh,
Dave.
there you go.
Like, it's not like middle-aged
Yeah.
white guys to like war movies. So I don't know what's going on with me, but
Yeah, that is definitely off brand.
yeah,
Totally off brand. I totally get it. All right. Well, what am I watching lately? Gosh, Running Point. It's been very amusing at a very
yeah.
lightweight level. It's built vaguely on the premise of a team that looks a lot like the Lakers with a family ownership that looks a lot like the Bus family after Jerry's gone. And Kate Hudson leads it, and Justin Theroux is the problematic coke addicted former head of the family, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty
Is that
entertaining.
supposed to be Jimmy, or who's
So
that
that's
supposed to
one.
be? Yeah.
Young Sherlock. I don't know they're that specific. One of the, it's got its amusements. I don't want to. It's nothing deep. But if you're waiting if NBA Summer League doesn't do it for you, this might fill in until October 1st and the season gets going. So
You think
there's something for
excited
you.
about that Chicago Bulls rookie? Scored 36 points in a game.
Oh my God, Williams looking pretty. What's his name? Caleb
Wilson.
Wilson. Yeah, because they
Right.
already got a Caleb. They already got
I
a
know, it's the
Caleb
same market.
in Chicago who's a star. But this kid looked pretty impressive. Yes, there's going to be a plenitude of Caleb athletic stars in Chicago. So I think 3 years from now, we're going to see a lot of babies coming out of Cook County Hospital named Caleb. That's just my guess.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
with that, we should wrap this puppy up. I am David Bloom, co-founder of Next TMT, as in technology, media, and telecom. Here with my co-founder, Daniel Frankel. You can get our twice-a-week newsletter, Next TMT, at nexttmt.com, and it's free. Can't beat the price. Like, share, subscribe. Send it along to all your buds. We are doing this particular midweek podcast in partnership with our friends over at Media Play News. And thanks to them, as always, for their support. And we also put out a weekly, first thing on Monday mornings, with the newsletter, we put out another podcast of some kind, most days. I think this week we had just one with one of our sponsors, a long conversation with folks at Hub Research. So a little bit different, but we do these. Join us. It's great. Thanks for joining us this time. Over and out.